This is America's Roundtable from Washington, D.C., and we are truly honored to have a principled leader and a tireless champion of freedom joining us today. Marsha Blackburn is a senior senator for Tennessee and the first woman to represent the volunteer state in the United States Senate. She's a member of the Finance Committee, the Commerce and Science and Transportation Committee, the Veterans Affairs Committee, and the Judiciary Committee. And without any further delay, welcome Senator Blackburn to America's Roundtable.
Welcome, Senator Blackburn.
Thank you. I'm delighted to join you as always. Thanks so much.
Indeed. Senator Blackburn, you led members of Congress who were spied on by President Joe Biden's FBI by sending a letter to U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi urging her to refer former Special Counsel Jack Smith to the Department of Justice Office of Professional Responsibility for investigation. And Senator Blackburn, this is really shocking and troubling for our fellow Americans that the Biden-Harris administration subverted the rule of law and weaponized the Justice Department to target Republican leaders like yourself. Senator Blackburn, what are the next steps to bring accountability and transparency to this major breach and invasion of privacy, and it appears lawless lawfare?
Yes, it is lawfare, and it is an invasion of privacy. It actually goes after our First and Fourth Amendment rights. It also infringes on the Speech and Debate Clause, the Stored Communications Act, and the separation of powers. That is what we know. We also know that Jack Smith in May and September of 23 went after our records, and he wanted to know who we talked to, who called us, where we were physically located, the duration of the call from the period of January 4th to January 7th of 2021. And of course, they were going after President Trump during this period, and he was actually indicted in August of 23. What we know is if a special counsel could get the records of 8 sitting members of the U.S. Senate and could actually comb through those records, then what is he doing to other conservatives? And it is important to note that as FBI Director, Kash Patel has stepped up. He has fired everybody that was involved in Jack Smith's unit. It is called a CR-15 unit, and they have all been fired from the FBI. And we are continuing this with our pursuit of professional conduct and the misconduct of Jack Smith. He is allowed to practice law in Tennessee and in New York. We think disbarment is in order for him, and we'll see how the Office of Professional Conduct chooses to move forward at the DOJ.
Right, and Senator Blackburn, this is another manifestation of Democrat-led administrations with Marxists and socialists in power who believe in big, omnipotent government and command and control system. They think that they are above the law and are using their position to erode the separation of powers, as you said, and that are enshrined in the U.S. Constitution. And they should be removed from all government institutions in America's republic.
Well, and yes, you're right about the abridgment of the separation of powers. And see, when you look at the weaponization of the FBI and the DOJ, which we already knew had taken place but did not know the extent, and you look at the targeting of the 8 of us, the commonality between the 8 of us is we're each Republicans, we each support President Trump, and each of us had valid questions about the 2020 election. Now, those are the commonalities. So we know that they were outside of what should have been the scope of their investigation. And many of us think Jack Smith should never have been appointed as special counsel in the first place. And we certainly have continued to support President Donald Trump through this entire process.
Senator Blackburn, Democrats shut down the government on October 2025. In September 2025, the Republican-led House passed a 7-week continuing resolution to extend government funding through November 21 in order to avoid a government shutdown. Although Senate Democrats led by Senator Schumer voted for funding extension in March, now they refuse to provide a funding extension and basically refuse to fund our military service members, veterans, and their families, and low-income assistance programs, among others. This is disrupting our economy, threatens our public safety, and undermines public confidence in America's institutions. Under the Biden administration, with the Democratic leadership, Congress passed 13 clean funding extensions, placing country over party. Senator Blackburn, it appears that Democrats are once again playing party politics and appeasing the radical left to the detriment of our fellow Americans. What are your thoughts about the reasons for their refusal to open the government and the timing to end this Democrat-led government shutdown?
Yes, and indeed we know that they wanted to get through their No Kings rallies this past weekend, and they're suffering from Trump derangement syndrome. We're fully aware of that. I think also one of their primary reasons for this is they want to supercharge Obamacare. What they're trying to do is to keep the COVID era extensions on the subsidies. That's added subsidies. They took off the caps, the income caps. So anybody in the exchange was getting a subsidy. Now bear in mind, they have told us many times that Obamacare is a stepping stone to government-run health care. They want that single-payer system. So if they can get more people into getting a subsidy and have the government subsidize more of that premium, then that gets them closer to government-run health care. Now, bear in mind, they don't want to talk about the underlying problem, which is Obamacare is too expensive to afford. And the insurance ends up being just a hot mess. But you've got single young men who are paying for maternity care. You've got people that are teetotalers that are paying for alcohol treatment and drug treatment and things of that nature. What we know is that competition and choice work in getting the price of goods and services down, and the same thing applies to health insurance. And you are going to have to see reforms and a different approach on healthcare. Common sense things like health savings accounts, common sense processes like a cross-state line purchase of health insurance, because Obamacare is too expensive to afford, so therefore they're trying to subsidize it. They're paying 80%, 90%, even some people that are in the exchange have zero premiums, zero, that they are having to pay because the taxpayer is paying the full note.
Right, and Senator Blackburn, you mentioned in one of your tweets, you said if Senator Schumer and the Democrats had their way, nearly $200 billion would be spent on healthcare for illegal aliens and non-citizens over the next decade.
Oh, that's exactly right. This is one of their things. And of course, in the big, beautiful bill, we had a couple of provisions that help get the cost of healthcare down. One is you have to reaffirm your job status, your income, your family size, things of that nature when you're in the exchange and receiving a subsidy. The other is that you cannot provide health care to those that are illegally in the country. And the Democrats want to take away any kind of verification to be in the exchange, part of their push to supersize Obamacare, and also to provide that health care to people that are illegally in the country. I think that citizens should come first.
Right.
Indeed. Senator Blackburn, you've been on the forefront addressing the serious concerns of lawlessness in Memphis and cited the city's high crime rates. You recently shared, and I quote, "In 2024, Memphis posted the highest crime rate in the country. It struggled especially with violent crime, seeing at least 4 times as many murders per capita as notorious crime havens like Lima, Peru, Islamabad, Pakistan, and Mexico City," unquote. And in fact, as you've been sharing with our engaged listeners over time, what are the realities on the ground in Memphis, the plight of its residents facing the surge of crime over the years, and why are Democrat officials not protecting our fellow Americans, but doubling down to the point of blocking efforts to establish law and order in key cities across the nation?
You know, we want to make Memphis safe again, and we also think that Memphis has the opportunity to be the model for how you can work together. You've got 2 Republican senators, Senator Hagerty and I are working on this along with our governor, and what you are seeing is a tremendous change in Memphis. The mayor of Memphis is doing a great job working with us, and so is the police chief there. And at this point, we have 13 federal agencies, plus the Tennessee Highway Patrol, the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and the National Guard all on the ground in Memphis. And indeed, in 2024, Memphis was the most dangerous city per capita in the United States. And people have said, let's do something about this. Let's get this crime rate down. So as a team, we're working together, and that is happening. There have been over 1,000 gang members that have been apprehended. You have seen about 50 missing children who have been found. There are over 150 indictments that have been received against these gang members, and the streets of Memphis are safer. People are out and about, and I was in Memphis on Friday, and I'm telling you, people are loving the fact that things are going very well in Memphis.
Congratulations. And Senator Blackburn, what are your final thoughts for our listeners as President Trump advances pro-growth solutions through tax cuts, cutting waste, abuse, and fraud in government spending, energy, and other policies which are benefiting our fellow Americans?
Yes, the president is doing a great job. You know what? It is truly Trump time in Tennessee and all across this country. People are loving it because the president is sending everything back to the states, and he's making decisions that affect our citizens. And you look at what he has done with the Middle East and with Israel. You look at what he is doing, dealing with Ukraine and Russia. You look at how he has dealt with NATO and the EU, and how he is holding our trading partners to account, saying this is what your tariff's going to be, or come to the table and let's do a trade deal. And all of that affects Tennesseans. And so every single day, I talk to Tennesseans who are so grateful for President Trump and his team and the great work they're doing, not only on behalf of the country, but on behalf of so many citizens of our great state.
Thank you so much for joining us on America's Roundtable, Senator Blackburn. We wish you continued efforts, success in your important endeavors.
Thank you so much,
Senator Blackburn.